secret weapons technology, advancing the truth from the inside. This is Task Force Griffin Radio. With your host, military insider, Commander Cobra.
Welcome to Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio, kgrradio.com. You have made your connection with Task Force Griffin and Commander Cobra, and your contact is secure tonight. I am very pleased to let you know we have a most special and esteemed guest tonight as our, I'm very happy to announce that Linda Moulton Howe is our guest, and she's waiting in the wings, so to speak. But before I get too far down my list, Race is working the controls tonight. He's on the wing for us, and we want to put out a very special Get Well and Heal Up Skywatcher report out. From all reports, he's doing well, feeling better. Possibly he'll get into the chat room tonight to do some of his, I guess it'll be a one-hand fingertip kind of communicating. That actually could be worth something to have on YouTube to watch. I'm going to dedicate tonight's show to Mark Osgeist. He's a former Marine Sheriff Police Officer, and he received the Defender of the Constitution Award this week. He's known as the contractor who didn't follow the instruction to stand down during Benghazi. Regardless of where you stand on how that event took place, the fact that he was willing to roll in there, save lives, I think he is an outstanding example of everything that is the best and brightest of what our military and our people put forward in those operations. And I was tickled to see that Oz had been recognized for his unwavering support of the people of the United States. Just a super, super guy, and I'm glad that it happened. But with no ado, because we don't have a lot of time with Linda tonight, unfortunately, but I have been an avid follower of Linda's for a number of years. It was one of the reasons that I knew about KGRA. And she was so kind to take some emails and calls and make time for us in a very busy schedule. Folks, the greatest audience on the planet, Linda Moulton Howe, is on Task Force Griffin. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Well, thank you. And I want to say my appreciation to you and to all of our military people who really, when I know what my brother has gone through in all of his days in the Air Force, and that one of the things that I have found to be sort of a new level of communication is that there are so many people who have served in so many special forces, and they have been directly involved with interfacing with, we'll call it the alien presence. Whether they're from extraterrestrial locations in our universe or a parallel timeline or another dimension, there is an increasing volume of people, men and women, who have served in our military and have been in special forces, and they've been face to face with nonhumans, and they're letting me know about their work. And when you and I talked, I said I wanted to reach out to everybody in your audience to get in touch with me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. Think of a reporter who files news about the Earth, because I really am grateful for the whistleblowers that have been coming to me since around 2015 with increasing amounts of information on this strange mystery of the alien presence on our planet, throughout our solar system, and on out into the Milky Way galaxy, according to remote viewers. And that there is a second category that you and I talked about that is extremely important to me, and that is hearing from anybody in a military or a scientific category who might know about the bismuth, magnesium, zinc that I have been studying since 1996, and that physicist Hal Puthoff at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin and I have talked about reaching out to see if we could find the Army sergeant who in April to June of 1996 called me, communicated with Art Bell and me about the materials that he was sending in boxes from his grandfather, and that right now, today, as we go forward in the spring of 2018, there is even more importance on what this bismuth, magnesium, zinc does in terms of acting as a gravity waveguide, and that Hal Puthoff and I and others are hoping that somewhere that Army sergeant who called me in Philadelphia in 1996 is out there, and that if he is, could he call in now? Could email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com, that we are still struggling to understand this amazing layered metal, and that one of the keys now, Commander, that has come through all of the investigations that John Burroughs and I have done on Phenomena Radio, and John's own effort to survive damage to his heart, is that we know that unidentified aerial phenomena emit terahertz frequencies. This is what we know is a key to the bismuth, magnesium, zinc. We know it is a key to the damage to military people who have had close-up encounters with UAPs. And so I'm hoping that your audience can help me in these two areas, whistleblowers, and is that Army sergeant from 96 anywhere out there who could get in touch, as we are trying so hard to understand more about this layered metal that I would say tonight, without hesitation, was made by non-humans in some sort of non-human laboratory conditions.
Well, you have the resources of the task force. Can consider yourself a member after tonight. And there's a number of very interesting folks that have been guests and have contributed. And there's a number that just write emails and send information. So hopefully, if there is a couple of degrees separation to help track this down, and we'll talk off air as much as possible. And I'll see if I can help you as well in trying to locate this sergeant. But I'm going to slide back just a little bit. You have an incredible career, but I don't think a lot of people know how you got started. Could you give us a little bit of a breakdown of how you got into this work and became, a force du jour that you are?
Well, thank you. It goes back to, I did my undergraduate work at the University of Colorado in English literature. And then I went to work in Washington, D.C. for a senator from the state of Idaho, where I had been a representative in the Miss America pageant in order to get scholarship money for school. And that is where I became convinced that the people that I respected the most in Washington were the reporters. And I applied to Stanford University, got a full scholarship for 2 years, and worked on my master's degree making documentary films. And my subjects then and now, nothing has changed. I have always had beats as a journalist in science, medicine, the environment. What became added later on was I was hired to be director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver, Colorado. And there, my job was to produce live studio programs with people from Washington, from Denver, having to do with issues in the state of Colorado. So there were live studio shows. I was expected to do a couple of full documentaries for broadcast every year. And then I did news segments related to the live studios and to the documentaries. And in the summer of 1979, I had a crew that one of the audio guy had come off of a shoot for the brand new 2020 in New York. And he was great because he was a wonderful Steadicam operator. And in the work that I was doing that summer, I needed somebody who could walk like glass. And we were doing all kinds of heavy duty production for a documentary that I was doing. And at lunch one day, His name was Mark O'Kane, one of the best audio guys of all time. And he said, Linda, I just came off of a strange shoot. It was for 2020 in New York. It's brand new. They want to do in-depth news segments. And he said, we were in Wyoming and Oklahoma and that part. And he said, you know what a stickler you are on me keeping the battery packs going. And for people who don't remember 79 to 80, we didn't have any computers. We had landline phones. We could type a letter. There were telegraphs. And for those of us who were in television production, it was called double system. You had a cameraman with a big camera running 16 millimeter film through for docs. And then he was corded or umbilical cord with a audio person, in this case, Mark O'Kane. And that audio was a Nagra with crystal sync. And that's why we had to use those clap sticks. That's how you establish your frame in audio and your frame in film for sync. And so as a producer, writer, director, editor with the guys, we had to work like a ballet team where the cameraman and the audio guy could never get separated because of the electronic necessity for them to stay in sync. And then I would have to work around them. And one of the issues always was, if you're going into the field, you had to have 7 to 9 battery belts, always charged throughout the night, so that the cameraman and or audio would be wearing the battery belts that would keep the camera and the audio recorder going. And that's why when Mark said, Linda, you know what a stickler you are about my keeping my battery belts charged. He said, we'd go out into Oklahoma or Kansas, and here would be a dead cow or a dead horse, and we'd have no power. And we were embarrassed as a crew because we knew that we had charged all of our battery belts during the night, and we get close to one of these dead cows and dead horses, and we'd have no battery charge. And he said it was really, really weird because, we would have charged our batteries. And I said, well, what are they going to do with the whatever footage you got? And he said, I don't know, but this guy, Rune Arledge, is the new EP on this 2020. He said, why don't you call him and see? Because he said we shot over 100,000 feet of film. Now, in 1979, no one shot over 100,000 feet of double system film. So he really had my attention. And I got a hold of the guy who was the EP on 2020. And I said, I'm director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver. And my cameraman said that you couldn't keep your battery belts running in the presence of these dead cattle and horses. And I wanted to know, when are you going to broadcast your special? And I got the answer of a shock of that moment was, no, we scrubbed it because we're in the business of news, and we couldn't get any answers on what was killing and mutilating these animals without blood or tracks.
Now, that doesn't change your opinion of journalists that would drop that kind of a story back there in 79?
No. I completely understood what the network was up against. But what it did for me was provoke the heck out of me. That was going to be my next project, and I was manager of the department. So in September of 79, I started with the Mark O'Kane audio, Rich Lerner in camera. We got in a truck that was at the station, sort of a station wagon type truck with all of our gear. And we took off flying by the seat of our pants, where I would get a rancher or a sheriff or a deputy lined up, and we would start the day with an interview that I was able to get lined up. But then every single day for a month, it unfolded with whatever was happening, which included live, fresh mutilations that we were getting to. And that was the turning point for me, that we were pushing our way through thick willows, for example, to follow a sheriff and a deputy to a new mutilation down in Walsenburg, Colorado. And Rich and Mark are lifting up their Nagra and the camera because we are in such thick willows, and we're pushing. I mean, we're physically having to push through these willows. And we see the sheriff and the deputy bend down in front of us, going under limbs of a big tree. The branches came down on top of the willows. And so we follow in with the guys getting the equipment down low to the ground so we can get under these branches. And then we could all stand up, because inside, like a big umbrella, were all of these big tree branches that went down to the ground on the willows, but plenty of room for us to stand up inside of kind of like a hollow space. And here is a steer, dead only a week. And in the ear left ear was lying on its right side. The left ear had been cleanly removed in a perfect circle, no blood. The eye had a perfect, like you took a protractor in school and you did a perfect circle, taking the hide around the eye and the eyeball and the eyelids and the eyelashes. So there's nothing left there and there is no blood. The jaw flesh had been perfectly removed so that you could see the teeth and the jaw and no blood. And then where the penis and the testicles had been was a perfect oval, only hide deep, only 1/4 of an inch, no blood, no fluid, and the rectum had been cored out in a hole that was approximately 6 inches wide and penetrating into the body about 12. This was the classic bloodless animal mutilation. And the sheriff said to me and to the crew, "Is there anything about this site outside of the animal that strikes you as strange?" And I remember that Mark and Rich and I were looking up, and it hit me that right above us, thick, were the branches of this tree. And here is this huge 1,700-pound steer. And I said to the sheriff, "Well, how did the animal get in here without breaking any of these branches?" And he said, "Bingo. That's what we can't figure out either, because we had to push like crazy to get
So no tracks of any kind.
No, and no branches anywhere.
And no sign of any kind of kinetic motion to get it in there.
That's right. And that happened in more places than you could list, where an animal was in a bizarre. One of them that I investigated in Colorado was, and actually this went over into New Mexico near Mora. And this were the Indians, the local Indians in Mora. They took me up in a Jeep so that I could see on the very tippy top of a flat kind of butte that was very high, about 10,000 feet. And they had found a whole series of animals, elk, deer, cattle, horses, sheep, goats. Various animals would be found up on this high, flat plateau with no tracks, and it had been over a period of time, and they wanted me to see, here is a place where we find these animals. And when you go to another location where one of the first photographs that I think it was the forestry department, they showed me that they had deer and they had elk that were just like the cattle and the horses and other animals, but there was a photograph that had been taken by a plane, and it was a young, I think it was a young male lying in snow on top of a plateau without a single print, not any print from that young animal's feet, nothing else around it. And that's how I started I think of being plunged into fire right from the beginning. And one of the sheriffs that I did an interview with on camera later, but here he wouldn't say these words to me on camera. He said these only to me off camera. He said, Linda, I'll save you some time. The perpetrators of the animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. And he had been sheriff in Logan County, Colorado for 23 years. He was really a heavy-duty John Wayne character. And when he told me about what tipped him to the, we'll call it the creatures from outer space, using his words, he said it was the first of the animal mutilations that he went out to investigate as sheriff in 1970, I believe it was early 74. And he asked a vet to go with him to the field to save time so that they could get a fresh necropsy on a cow. This was a cow. And he said the vet started taking the animal apart. I've done this. It takes usually about 4 hours in the field when you're working with a professional vet, and you take the animal apart meticulously. And now he was down in the chest, and he said, Sheriff, look at this. And he had a plastic glove on his hands, and he was raising up his index finger. And the sheriff said, I could see that there was something glistening. I said, what is it? He said, this is the pericardium that surrounded the heart that should be in this cow. And there is no heart tissue anywhere in this chest. There's no clotted blood. There's no clotted blood in the arterial system or the venous system. And he said, this pericardium, you have one around your heart.
Right.
Cows, it's a mammal thing. And he said, I can't find any slice or any hole in this membrane. Sheriff, somehow this huge heart, a grown adult cow would have about a 7 by 11 by 12 or 9-inch, depends, heart.
Right.
And he said, there's not even a cut in this pericardium. How did the heart get taken out from inside of this pericardium, number one? And number two, where is all the blood that should have been here? And there's nothing. And Sheriff Graves said, that vet looked at me with great anger and he said, don't you ever call me out on another one of these. I am not going to stand up in front of a bunch of reporters and tell them that I have no medical explanation on earth for how this is done.
Now, Linda, we're coming up on our first break. Did you ever get to come? We have about 2 minutes left. Did you ever come to a conclusion of the animal mutilations and why they stopped?
No, they have never stopped. They've been going on around the world.
So we don't have them as a news item anymore?
I report about animal mutilations throughout every year. Always have. If you go to my news website, earthfiles.com, type in animal mutilations, there are more than 300, 400 animal mutilation reports there. It never stopped. When I was doing the investigation in 79 to 80, and my 90-minute special broadcast at night in a 90-minute 8 to 9:30 CBS special, it was the first documentary ever done in which the investigation was not biased by management at a TV station saying to a reporter, you can't cover this, which had happened. Nobody was saying that to me. I was investigating actual facts. And that's why I think it was like a bomb went off when A Strange Harvest was broadcast. As I said, we didn't have a computer. We only had the telephone and we only had letters. And they started dragging in these great big gray mail bags into my office. I think that we estimated we got 1,000 letters from the United States and other parts of the world within a month or so. And people were drawing what they had seen. Letters were constantly beginning, I've never told anyone this before, but I've heard about your documentary, A Strange Harvest. And it would be animal mutilations, seeing beings, beams of light that came down in ranches, ranchers who had seen animals rise in beams of light, lowered in beams of light, ranchers out in Oregon, for example, where they had seen and heard animals being dropped from a round disc. I have this in my book, Glimpses, Volume 2, High Strangeness, and that the animals were being dropped from a UFO glowing disc and crashing through the branches onto the ground. And one cowhand said, it's like whatever was doing this wanted us to know that these animals were being dropped from this craft. There's a lot of flaunting in the animal mutilation phenomena, flaunting where it is, you can't figure this out, you can't do this, we can do this. That has been an underbelly around the planet. And if you're not aware, just in the last 2 years, some 400 bloodless half cats in southern England in a perimeter of about 65 miles if you drew a circle around London. Now, the half cat syndrome was reported by the New York Times.
All right, I'm going to hold you there for our break.
Okay.
I want to pick that up on the other side. When we come back on the other side, this is Task Force Griffin, Linda Moulton Howe, my most esteemed guest tonight. I wish she had a little more energy that she could share with us. Hopefully for the second half, she'll jump up with a little bit more energy for us. But we are very, very lucky to have her, and it's been a wonderful first start. Task Force Griffin on KGRradio.com. Stand by 1 second. Talk to you on the backside.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Now streaming on Amazon Prime, UFO TV presents I Know What I Saw, expanded director's cut. Steven Spielberg says, compelling. Larry King says, this is the real Close Encounters. Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell said, I Know What I Saw is the most compelling film on the subject of UFOs to date. I Know What I Saw, expanded director's cut. Now streaming on Amazon Prime. Also available on iTunes and DVD from UFO TV.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to a civilian job. These extraordinary men and women bring more than just teamwork and inspiration to the workplace. They bring proven world-class job skills. And to ensure proper placement, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right job fit. Talented, skilled, and eager to get back to work, you have the opportunity to hire a seasoned veteran. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
For years, the KGRA digital broadcast station has been your contact for live UFO paranormal talk radio worldwide, bringing you the top names in research and investigations 7 nights a week. Our listeners connect to the KGRA on various platforms like TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and many more. Now, you can stream your favorite paranormal talk radio shows with our new fully integrated custom KGRA mobile apps for Android and iPhones. Listen to your favorite paranormal talk shows from any mobile device 24/7, free with smartphone or tablet. Utilize custom features to access news, show pages, archives, contests, events, and live interactive chat rooms. Set show notification alerts and never miss your favorite live programs. All free and available to download in Google Play or the iTunes App Store. Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. My guest, Linda Moulton Howe, First Lady of the paranormal research, especially when you get into the work on extraterrestrials and taking what I would say, the classical journalistic approach, the researched evidence-based type approach to the work, the hard documentation, not the quick shot, to back up what she has found. Journalism at its best, and in an area that many of us continue to be intrigued and interested in. When we went to our break, Linda, you were talking about the cats that were this terrible thing that's happening to cats in this area around London. And then off air, when we were talking, you brought it. I happened to make the remark to you. You said all the different animals that were in have been involved in this ongoing thing that doesn't seem to make mainstream news very much anymore. I remember the 70s and 80s when this was the story that seemed to be on all the time. Take us through the situation with the London cats, or that area that you say that circumference around London, and some of the other animals. And then let's go right to the question I gave you off air. What about people? Have people been part of this?
Okay, let's give a time frame. I have a journal from Australia that goes back to 1911. This is the beginning of the 20th century. It's about 104 sheep found bloodlessly excised, ear, eye, tongue, jaw, in a billabong in Australia. 1911. 104 sheep. No tracks, no blood. So you have to at least put that as a marker from the beginning of the 20th century. By the 1950s and 60s, bloodless, trackless animal mutilations were making first subtle headlines in places like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia in the 1950s. Then by the 1960s, this is when worldwide headlines went in every nation, both hemispheres, that in September of 67, a horse was found stripped of all flesh from the neck up, and all the mediasternum, the chest organs, had been removed. No blood and no tracks around the horse. But 100 feet from the horse's bloodless, mutilated body, there were a whole bunch of hooves in a circle. And the sheriff and the people who were investigating said it was as if something pulled this horse up on the backs of its feet, its hooves, and kept it in some kind of a raised position while the back feet made all of these prints, and then picked the horse up somehow and then put it down 100 feet away in a bloodless, classic, mutilated fashion. And what made world headlines outside of the fact that this was a well-documented case is that in the valley of the San Cristo Mountains around Alamosa, Colorado, Sangre de Cristo Mountains, that summer of 67, people were reporting all kinds of UFOs, glowing lights, little planes that would dissolve in front of people into glowing discs, and glowing discs that would dissolve into what looked like little airplanes. Some people said it's almost as if something is trying to say, look at us, this is what we do. And the mutilated animals were occurring at that time. Now, when I did the film A Strange Harvest, which received a regional Emmy, I have always been, since Stanford, a producer, writer, director, editor, and reporter. That's what I am. I have nothing to do with ufology. I am an investigative reporter in science, medicine, and the environment, of which the animals have been a huge unexplained phenomena for decades and decades and continue to this day. The parallel question, if you jump over to England and you say, what about all of the half cats there? They have the same type of excision. When I worked with a pathologist, hematologist, John Altshuler, in Colorado on literally dozens of large animal mutilations, in which I would go out into the field with formalin in a plastic container with a scalpel and or scissors, and I would make sure that I was marking carefully with a wired ID tag. Here is the sheriff's excision. Here is Linda's excision. Here is the mutilator's excision. I did this about 36 times for Dr. Altshuler, going by myself out into ranches, up into mountains, so that I could gather fresh tissue, and he would be able to do forensic studies, and found that at the excisions, the hemoglobin was cooked, the collagen was cooked. It was a high energy, high heat instrument, but we could not identify it because lasers on carbon-based life forms always leave carbon black. You can see it under a microscope of any kind of human or animal surgery.
And these didn't?
But in the animal mutilations, never. We never got black carbon pepper grains at the excisions. Now, that includes a whole half cat. The half cats have been going on throughout every province of Canada, every state in the United States, recently this circular area around London. But here's what's really important. When Dr. Altshuler was alive, God rest him, he passed about a decade ago, he contacted an animal control officer in Vancouver, BC, where they had 30-some bloodless half cats within a short period of time. And Dr. Altshuler was able to work with this animal control officer to get a whole front half cat shipped in a very rapid way through FedEx and in a container that was acceptable to his laboratory in Denver. And he found that the excision, we've just got the front half of the cat. There was no back half. It's usually a front half or a back half, not both. And that the entire front half of the cat at the excision, the collagen had been cooked, the hemoglobin had been cooked exactly as we were finding in our forensic studies of the large animals. That was a really definitive point in an investigation that Dr. Altshuler said, we don't know what these cutting instruments are. If it is sound, what is it? Because it's not in the general medical literature. Now, when people say, if it's been happening to animals in both hemispheres, including kangaroos, around the world, and it's been ongoing since the beginning of the 20th century, and we're headed toward the middle of the 21st. What about humans? I do not have any verified necropsy report, medical report of a human mutilation exactly like all the animals. But here is an insight about why that might be the case. It was around 1989. And I got a phone call from somebody in Missouri and said, yeah, you need to know that a man has been found face down in a lake here, very rural. And he was totally nude. And he had an ear missing, eye, jaw, tongue, genitals, and rectum, just like the animals that you investigate. So I immediately got a hold of Dr. Altshuler and said, can you get in touch with the coroner's office? If we can get a full-bore, documented report on this, then I'm not going to hesitate reporting this, but I've got to have whatever the coroner's report. So Dr. Altshuler called up the coroner's office, introduced himself as the professional he was, and that we were doing investigations having to do with animals, and we wondered if this human body might fall into this category. And Dr. Altshuler called me to tell me that the coroner hung up on him. Now, one of the things that I have found as an investigative reporter and a TV producer, that is that when you start moving into hard evidence in any subject related to extraterrestrial biological entities interacting with our planet, an alien intelligence that can manipulate genetic material, can harvest genetic material, and seems to be the perpetrator of global animal mutilations for at least a century and a half, if not longer, that you run into blocks. I have run into all kinds of blocks. I have been followed. My phone has been tapped. I have been warned. But I am still here. This is 2018, and I started my very first investigations of animal mutilations in September of 1979. So it is now almost 40 years. And in those 40 years, the one thing that has driven me is that when you have facts, hard medical, physical facts, and you live on a planet where government agencies and military agencies want to cover up those medical facts, that makes me angry. I really,
rightfully so.
And I feel to my core that every Homo sapien on planet Earth deserves to know everything that our so-called 1% manipulator controllers have on an alien presence. To keep humans out of the information loop means we are manipulated by other humans who are gaining some sort of an advantage of keeping the extraterrestrial presence totally hidden. And that makes me also nervous because secrets, I think, always undermine the health of any kind of a group of people, whether it is a city or a nation or a world. And so I have done everything I can to keep reporting facts, the pressure of fact. I don't like to run with speculation. And the facts here, joining up with what George Knapp, another reporter, and the National Institute for Discovery Science, when they studied the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Right. They have mutilations, Sasquatch, shadow people, poltergeists, red lights. They had the whole 9 yards. And this was an official study by the National Institute for Discovery Science. And it is the mutilations and the strange animals and the big black cats that have haunted this planet that all of us, every single human deserves to know the truth. If the alien presence has a source that is out in the Milky Way galaxy or another galaxy far, far away, or the source is from another timeline, or the source is from a parallel dimension or another universe, any or all of the above now is being described in quantum physics, in the entire, I'm going to say the whole gamut of astrophysics is now beginning to include a look at dark matter and dark energy in relationship to the possibility of other dimensions. So whatever the truth is, you doing Commander Cobra, me, Linda Howe, I'm an investigative reporter and TV producer, that we are placing as a priority that our government has had policies of denial and lies since World War II.
Oh, and worse than that, what about the disinformation that goes on?
And we're supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. And what I think is becoming clear to everyone is that we stopped being of, by, and for the people decades ago. And that if we are going to rebalance the United States into a government that is not trying to hurt anyone who is outside policies of denial and lies, then we've got to open up this whole bloody story. Because until the governments and the intel agencies of CIA, NSA, NRO, DIA, there's 17 of them, until they are released from punishing people and hurting people for telling the truth, all of us are in jeopardy. And that is why I try to do the work I do, fact by fact.
You mentioned earlier that you had spent some time with Art Bell. I remember those years that you were often a guest. Can you describe some of that time?
Well, Art Bell asked George Knapp and Linda, me, to work with a man named Robert Bigelow on a radio program that Robert Bigelow wanted to do around 1991 to 92. That's how we all came together. And Robert Bigelow at the time was an owner of Budget Suites in the state of Nevada and surrounding states. And he was interested in UFOs and near-death experiences and phenomena. And George and I and Art went on the air in what was called Area 2000. That was what Robert Bigelow called his radio series. And we were on the air for several months, and it was very successful. And then a decision was made that we were not going to do Area 2000 anymore. Art asked me if I would do Dreamland, tweaking the government's nose, so to speak, about using Dreamland as their name for Area 51 in Nevada, where all things UFO, ET, and back engineering advanced technologies from someplace else were being carried out. So Art and I started Dreamland, and that evolved to 1995 Coast to Coast AM. And during all of that period of time to this day, Art would have me come on about every week or so. And a typical phone call from him would be, hey, can you do 5 hours on global with me tomorrow? And I was in Philadelphia for part of that. And I had a big living room and office. And so when Art would call up and say, can you do 5 hours? Because we did 5 hours then, not 4, which is what it is today. I would get all of the latest news that I had on any subject. And I would make myself in the middle of a bull ring on the phone because I only had a long distance phone then, wasn't operating through any technology.
Right.
And I would ring, and I would get out like 7 rings, and the rings and I would just hope that I had enough rings of material to get me through 5 hours live on the radio. And those were some of the more exciting radio broadcasts I've ever done in my life.
That has to be, quite honestly, a golden age for paranormal radio, because you guys actually created the format.
Well, I don't think it is paranormal anything. I've always disliked that word. It is trying to deal with the mysteries of this earth with real witnesses, real evidence, even if it is UFOs.
Well, I'm not going to spar at my guest too much, but para and normal is not really a bad term when you're talking about parallel universes, quantum physics. It actually fits quite well. But we'll part on this because we'll have opportunity in the future to talk about my misusing of terms.
Well,
but I listened to you and Art in those days often. And I remember Dreamland. I thought Dreamland actually was quite the superior product because you guys had a little more edge in those days. It seemed a little more to the marrow, no pun intended, with our subject that's dominated most of this hour that we've talked about.
Well, a lot of people would not realize that I could be anywhere on the planet, quite literally. Art never knew where I would be calling him from.
Right.
And when I was in England, he would depend that I would call a number that he had given me, for example, and say, Art, I've got a red telephone box, and I'm going to be with X, and it'll be at 4 a.m., and we will connect with you live.
Oh, what a picture that would make. You in one of those British phone boxes at 4 a.m. local time.
Yeah, it was 4
with all your notes and paperwork. At least you picked a British phone box. You could actually have a conversation with 2 or 3 people on them.
Yeah, what you could see would be some of the shows. I had 5 or 6 people lined up outside of the door.
Oh, classic.
The live on the spot from crop formations. But the other part that people would laugh at today is that when we started Dreamland, I had only about 8 by 11 inch audio tape recorders, and I would take the phone and put the mouth. I do an interview,
right,
and record it through the phone with alligator plugs, and then I would go to literally that. Those are when we had phone booths. They don't exist anymore, and I would go to a phone booth wherever I was, restaurants, traveling, an airport, any place that I was, and I would call up Art and I would say, I've got my tape queued, and he wouldn't know what was coming at all. And I would do an intro and put the mouthpiece down to this 8.5 by 11 tape recorder and play with the volume up so that he was getting my live from wherever I was through the mouthpiece of the phone. And we did that for about 2 weeks. And then one day Art called and he says, Linda, we've got quite a large audience now. And he said, I really think we should improve the quality of your audio. So that's when I started going where they had technicians who built me a radio studio, and then I'm more tied down. And in many ways, it was much more fun when it was rougher audio, but I was anywhere, everywhere.
So as we're coming up towards the top of our hour here, and unfortunately our end, obviously you're going to have to come back to Task Force Griffin again sometime.
Yes. Because
we have countless questions that we can go over. I'm going to have you leave us with this. You have no doubts in the existence of extraterrestrials and their interaction and activities on the planet, correct?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
And if you remember in March a year ago, a little less than a year ago, Robert Bigelow was interviewed by Lara Logan, the 60 Minutes correspondent, on a Sunday in March. And it was about his blow-up buildings that he's going to use on the moon at the Lagrange point between the Earth and the moon and on Mars. And when she asked him straightforwardly about his perception of extraterrestrials, he said, quote unquote, they are right under the noses of everyone. And when he said that, she said, aren't you concerned that people will think that sounds crazy? He said, I don't give a damn. And they left his quote in 60 Minutes. They did not edit it. So now I think that Robert Bigelow for years has been sending signals that he knows and has been inside of programs. He knows that there is an extraterrestrial or alien presence is the phrase du jour.
Okay.
And the alien presence has been on this planet for millions of years, and that for us to be denied that truth today deserves his comment, I don't give a damn because this is the truth.
Okay, next follow-up onto that. Do you believe we have an active engagement of cooperation or some kind of agreement working with these various extraterrestrial entities?
Okay. On Phenomenon Radio on KGRA, at Coast to Coast AM that I do with George Norrie, in dozens of reports that I do at my Science Environment and Real X-Files News, earthfiles.com, in the 11 years of Ancient Aliens, in which I have been a talent with Ancient Aliens for 11 years, you can find in all of my work hard interviews with people such as Lynn Buchanan, who was paid for and got checks from the Defense Intelligence Agency in the 1980s when they were working at Fort Meade next to the shiny National Security Agency building. And they were remote viewers with great talent, and they helped our government and intel agencies tremendously. And one of the subjects that they all had and were tasked was about extraterrestrial biological entities in this universe. And as Lynn said, we all encountered them. And we know that we have had extraterrestrial, interstellar trade routes since the 1970s with some of the intelligences that interact with our planet. And I think you need to take that to the bank, that the remote viewers are telling the truth, even if our own government wants to keep us in the dark.
Well, very well said, madam. Very well said. And I'm going to thank you profusely for taking the time in your very busy and demanding schedule to join us on Task Force Griffin. I can't wait for the next time we get together on TFG. Do you want to tease something for this week?
Yeah, we'll be on Phenomena Radio Thursday, March 1st, and you will be our guest to talk with John and me about some of the questions that we have, both from your background and our constant efforts in trying to reach out and find more people in this planet who have had military background and who know something about what happened in England that entire year of 1980 when Rendlesham Forest was a series of strange lights and craft.
I look very forward to being your guest and honored that you would even consider to ask me to be part of that. So that'll be this week and looking forward to that. One thing that I did write on my notebook here, one of the pictures I sent you of one of the aircraft that I test flew was built in Essington, Pennsylvania.
I'll be darned. Well,
and I used to work out of North Philly back in my Coast Guard days when I was doing operational tests on a new Coast Guard helicopter.
I love Philadelphia, and I was there for 13 years, and my daughter and her family are still there. But what happened, and you probably know, the weather kept changing and getting wetter and wetter. And I decided that the writing was on the wall. And my brother has lived in Albuquerque for nearly 30 years and works at Lockheed. And so I decided I was going to go to the high desert, and I live at 6,600 feet now. And this has been the year without winter. We have hardly had any moisture, while Philadelphia and the East Coast has had a tremendous amount. And that is part of the changing climate that we are in and we've got to face up to.
Well, with that, thank you again, Linda, for taking the time tonight. Can't wait to talk to you on Thursday. I'll try to be well rested and be a good guest for you. I don't know if I can nearly be as good as you were tonight. So thank you so much for everything you share, all the lifetime achievement that you have accomplished and the kind of work that you've put out. I'm in debt because you and Art and a number of others have been the guest with me in long trips and when I've been in the car, and many, many nights when I've been waiting, actually, in some cases, to go out on missions. I would have have the radio on before this internet thing exploded, and we have a new way of formatting and interacting with each other.
Yep.
So thank you again very much, and I look forward to talking on Thursday.
Okay.
This is Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back on the other side to pick up what the next part of the mystery is tonight on Task Force Griffin.
It's AJ from Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. Have you been searching for unique items to create or add to your sacred space? What about tools for your holistic healing? Or those one-of-a-kind magical ingredients to manifest your desires? Well, look no more, because Vibes has a variety of items to assist you in your spiritual journey. From crystals to candles, incense to books, tapestries to jewelry, OnlineVibes.com has what you're seeking. We even have some thoughtful and mindful gifts to share with your friends and family too. Visit us at OnlineVibes.com from the comfort of your home, or give us a call at 385-244-1099 to have your order beautifully packaged and sent directly to you or a loved one. And right now, take advantage of the coupon code KGRA at checkout to receive 15% off any order. Remember, online, VIBEC.com.
Hi, this is Matt Ray for My Pillow. Look, I'd forgotten what a good night's sleep was like. Then I got a hold of My Pillow. I used to wake up with neck and shoulder pain. I thought it was the new normal. But after one night of using My Pillow, my neck and shoulder pain is gone, and I'm sleeping comfortably through the night. My Pillow's patented interlocking fill conforms to your personal sleep needs. It's guaranteed not to go flat. It's washable, it's dryable, and it's made in the USA, not to mention the 10-year warranty. Try it risk-free with a 60-day money-back guarantee. What have you got to lose besides back pain and shoulder pain? Right now, America's First News has a great deal. Try it for yourself. Call now. You'll get 50% off a 4-pack. That's 2 premium pillows and 2 travel pillows. Call now. 800-716-4835. Use the promo code RAY, R-A-Y. That's 800-716-4835. Use the promo code RAY.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Whether it's a natural disaster or one single child suffering from illness, the American Red Cross stands ready to supply blood when it's most needed. But blood is a perishable product. Therefore, it must continuously be replenished. You can safely donate blood every 56 days. The need is constant and patients are waiting. Call your American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE to schedule your life-saving appointment. Please give blood today. Patients are depending on you.
Hi, honey, I'm home.
You're late, mister.
I know. I totally lost track of time watching UFO TV at Bob's. Bob went to Amazon Prime, typed in one word, 5 letters, UFO TV, and then bam, this huge selection of movies popped up. UFOs, Forbidden Archaeology, Suppressed Science, Nikola Tesla, David Icke, and they add new films every week.
I guess that means we're getting UFO TV.
UFO TV is now streaming on Amazon Prime. Look for new films every week. Limited releases also on iTunes. Now streaming free on Amazon Prime from UFO TV, the movie Packing for Mars.
The space program, as most people understand it, is completely a front.
There's a whole nother reality going on out there.
There really is another caste in the human race.
People go through their lives on autopilot all the time. But what people don't realize is that they need the truth.
See the movie Packing for Mars, now streaming on Amazon Prime from UFO TV.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to Task Force Griffin. Task Force Griffin on KGRAradio.com, talking to the greatest audience on the planet. We have Marc DAntonio coming on in a little bit, but because of Linda's heavy schedule, we were not able to keep her for the rollover to our extra 30 minutes. But that's good, because that's a tag that I'm going to use and puppy dog eyes and whimpering sounds the next time I talk to her to convince her to come back on the show. That snickering, that laughter in the background would be my wingman tonight, Race Hobbs, who I probably know almost as long as anybody with KGRA, when he used to call me up and say for Mac Maloney, when Mac had his show here, are you able to come on as a guest tonight? I used to love that when the phone would ring and I could see it was in Arkansas, and I'm going to go, oh, I bet I know what this is. Do you remember those golden days?
I do.
Those halcyon days of ours when we would be putting it together. I'm going to have to get some extra rest, take a nap on Thursday before I go on the show with Linda. I can only imagine when I'm on the other side of it, where I'm her guest, what's in store. I can barely keep up with the woman. She's amazing.
I've worked with her for over 2 years every week, and I still start sweating about 4 hours before showtime. I just start perspiring, getting things ready for the program, and she is. I have so often said this jokingly, of course, but she is like a rabbit on crack. I mean, she is just a consummate professional. All the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and she just, she doesn't leave a stone unturned in her investigations. The movement, and as you I'm sure astutely heard in sort of the underlying theme of everything she does is all about science and the environment. And she'll make that real clear. I think, and I wanted to sort of add to this because Linda very seldom does, but it is very difficult to get mainstream scientists and military and even politicians to come on a show called Phenomenon to talk about aliens or UFOs. It's when you have a show and you're going after these people, you almost have to be very clever in how you word it. Sort of like doing a FOIA for UFOs, but you can't say UFOs. If you're looking for something to do in a government document with an assassination or a UFO or anything like that, you have to word it very cleverly. You have to talk all around the periphery of those subjects without using those terms in order to get closer, to get lucky and actually get a document that you could use or that can help your research. That's Linda. That's how she does it. That's what she does. And she has amazing at it.
Obviously the intellect. She has a lawyer type approach to it, she and that because it reflects the fact that she truly went into a journalism when journalism was a profession. I hesitate to say that what's passed today for journalism is I wouldn't wipe my six with it, but
she
give me your take on what you think. What do you think is going on with all these crazy starts and stops amongst all the unbelievable tragic things that have occurred? It's been a roller coaster this last year. Are you with me that you see kind of a thread of connection to a lot of this?
Man, this day and age, I was talking to Robin. Today's Robin's birthday. And the bird and I we were just hanging out and having a nice quiet moment at home after, a busy start to the day. And we had turned on the news, and she watches like Fox News. She can't stand watching CNN anymore. She used to, but she can't anymore. And it's like this shooting down in Florida, for example. We never dealt with stuff like that. I mean, you might have heard about someone maybe getting stabbed with a pocket knife or something, once in 4 years in school.
Right.
In high school. No mass shootings, no active shootings, none of this type mess. But we didn't have video games at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old where we're running out just shooting everybody, jacking folks' cars, beating people down, burning their houses down. All of this negative shit that these kids are exposed to today.
I mean, you got a couple other, I think, telling features that have happened. Family has completely shifted and changed.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I don't even mean it has to be. I knew people that didn't have the traditional family, but their family that was around them, whatever adults that were there that were acting in the capacity of a guardian, were acting as guardians. Someplace along the way, that trolley, talk about getting lifted off and thrown into the high bush with no footprints around it. It's unbelievable how bad this situation is rolled into it. And you have. And the reason I bring this up is not so much to get into this absolutely gut-turning tragedy that we're dealing with, but I have the feeling, or my intuition tells me, that this seems to be something that they can't control. The internet and the information that's being passed, the speed that's being passed. So if you can't control it, then you overload it. That you throw so much stuff into the ether that you're diverting attention, you're overloading the airways, the internet with so much that you continue to splinter groups out. And that's the thing that's
you want me to tell you, let me interrupt you. Let me tell you this, because we're going to run out of time before I can get this out. I'm telling you right now. I agree with you. But listen, dig back to civics. Civics used to be taught in schools all the way up until the 70s, where we were taught about the Constitution, the Republic, the Bill of Rights. We were taught about things not in a flyby, let's mention this today and then move on. We studied it. We were taught it. Number two, and this may seem trivial, but just follow me.
It's a bedrock point.
When you're not teaching the future of this country, where you came from, how it was made, and why. Destabilize the foundation of this country in the future by stripping them of who we are and where we came from and why we have these rights that we have. And most importantly, the responsibility of freedom isn't taught. And if you send the next generation and the next generation out into the world and up on the hill into Washington, this is what you start to get. These people in Washington, there's a lot of old folks. They pander. All they are old politicians washed up on the end of their run, and they're pandering. That's exactly what I see the left doing today. They've done it for a long, long time. They used to have a ground to stand on. They used to be the party for the people and the working class man. They did a lot in effect for that in a short period. But since we've got workplace rules and all this stuff is all settled, we don't have, workplaces and slavery conditions at workplaces anymore. They really haven't had a foot to stand on, in my opinion. And conservatives have had pro-life, choice life and gun rights and Second Amendment rights. There's a lot of things that they have fought to keep and to secure the Constitution. And that's why I lean towards the conservative side of things and always have. I'm not about punishing successful people for being successful. And I'm not about punishing people for being poor and unsuccessful. But I don't think it's right to blame corporate America because they do it by the law. You blame the lawmakers for not changing the law in ways that prevent, I'm all for caps on how much money you could make. Like, There's CEOs that make $40 million bonuses a year. There's no job in the United States, including the presidency of the United States, that's worth $40 million bonus on top of the money you're already making. That is just ridiculous when there are people starving out here, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And quite simply, when I get back to my point about civics and about the generations we're raising, Cobra, when you start to talk about the family and the breakdown in families, fathers and mothers in the family unit, what we forget, and see, this is important. Everybody listening, forget that I'm a Republican or a Democrat or my political affiliations or anything. Just hear my voice here for just a second. None of this we're talking about for the majority is new. None of these issues, gay rights, none of this. We had gays and homosexuals 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. Go back and study the Etruscans and the Romans. Go look at that and see, what happened to them back then. None of this is new. What we don't understand and fail to understand is this. Government is bloated, number one. But if the politicians actually went and fixed the problems that are on their desk today, they wouldn't have a job tomorrow.
That's right.
They wouldn't have a job tomorrow. It's by their design that they pedal around and fight and jaw and jabber over this crap like there's some... Listen, if people can't get down to common sense goods, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble. Now you've got rogue nations that are getting heavy weapons, and I'm talking heavy weapons, and they're not gonna play the game like we did. They don't respect those weapons the way we did,
and they don't have any cultural form of government that makes them accounting.
No, absolutely not. See,
this used to be the last refuge.
When you plow a field,
faults included.
When you plow a field by hand, the fruit that comes to that field is appreciated by the person that plowed that field. When you build a weapon, you appreciate what it took to build that weapon, what it can do, and you respect what it can do, and you're not so quick to just go pull the trigger on it because you know what could happen.
Well, there's the other portion of it that you also spent the money for it.
True. But at the end of the day, when you strip away our traditions, when you strip away where we came from, all this stuff has been happening before. If these senators and congressmen fix these problems, they'd be out of a job. Government would be way smaller, and we wouldn't need to have all of these. They could go up there and work in 4 months and be done, and then go back and do their work at law offices or whatever. The money that they're allowed to take needs to be curtailed way back. It doesn't take billions of dollars to run an election anymore. You just stop all that. And then, but most importantly, to get back to the people themselves. Well, when you start taking away what got us here was faith in a higher creator, in a grand creator, in a God, you can call it whatever you want. But in God we trust was what got us here. Guns in the hands of civilians. I think the important part that
you're bringing up there is that we also took a form of government in our Constitution, which I hold as probably the most precious document we have created in the form of government, is that we delineated that our rights do not come from the government. They come from a higher authority.
Right.
The creator. So that fundamentally throws a wrench into the works that you're talking about, because once you turn power over to your government, you start to believe, and this is where the logic is going to come crashing, because this is why we don't teach logic anymore. And this is where I want to conclude when we talk about, because I'm just not real comfortable talking about this tragedy with these kids, because there's so many things that are screwed up with this, and it's absolutely not what it appears to be.
I know it.
But you're telling me that the people that are supposed to be protecting our children do not enter into the building to do their jobs. But you want me to give up my ability to protect myself and my family, my town, however you want to work that out.
So that shit can happen to us here at home too.
Right. How do you square that argument, though, that the people that you're telling me are going to protect me don't?
There's no way they can. By that rationality, we got to get rid of cars, buses, big heavy trucks. that people
Diet
take
Coke.
and just mow down crowds of people with. You can't. It's the mentality of the people. What you have to fix. This is what I was getting at. What you have to fix is the people. We had these guns when I was a kid. I had an AR-15 when I was a kid. I had an Uzi when I was a kid. I never shot anybody. Never even thought about going to school and shooting up nobody. I went to school and whipped a couple dudes' asses with I balled up my fist. But we lived.
Yeah, I was.
We
Probably
lived
the kid.
to fight another day.
The kid in that drama on the other side of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly,
It changed as time went by.
The point I'm making is it's the culture. It's parents not being parents. It's kids raising kids. You know what? My dad would take his belt off and strap my ass right out in the street in front of all my kids and all the neighbors, and nobody would say shit. Nobody would say a word because I had it coming. And if my dad my dad didn't whip my butt every time I had it coming because he didn't catch me all the time. But I knew every time my butt was on fire, I was getting it for every time I got away with it, too. I knew it. When I had to go sit and think about what I had done, I got my tail smoked, go over there and you sit down and don't you move until I come get you. And I had to sit there and stew and think about what I had done. I guarantee you I applied a different mentality the next time I was out there doing whatever it was I was doing. And it made me a better person. It grew me into a better man, and I knew responsibility, and I knew that there are repercussions for everything you do, good and bad. And in today's society, that's not the case. You can go on YouTube, Cobra, and you can Google these videos of these kids throwing fits in front of their parents and everything. I would be in jail. Ladies and gentlemen, the sound of my voice, I would be locked up in jail for beating the skin off my kid if they ever talked to me like that. If they ever threw a fit and threatened me and cussed me and used the F-bomb at me. How can a parent even sit there and videotape their kids doing that, let alone just let them do it and
then put it on the internet?
Oh, my gosh. See, that just shows you. That shows you the mentality, the moral fiber of what we're dealing with.
The logic breakdown is I don't want the government listening on my phone. I don't want the government looking at my records. Go on Facebook, and I'll know the most intimate details of thousands and thousands of people.
Millions.
Put in there every day.
Yep.
By them.
Yep.
Our culture has it's slipped its gear. Hopefully we're going to put it back on its gear.
What made us great was God, guns, and knowing the responsibility of the liberty and the freedom that we inherited. The generations today, they want everything given to them.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but I'm going to say that the generations today just didn't hatch that way. We nurtured them into this position.
No, it's not their fault. It is not their fault. And I'm appreciative that you brought that point.
Because I have served with the greatest out of the millennial, the Y, X generations that have put on this uniform, that are doing the job in the military, that work in hospitals, that want to become teachers and do care about their kids. I've had that privilege of rubbing shoulders with all of them. And what saddens me out of this is, and I always close, and we're kind of close to our break here, we have in our hands, in these computers, probably the largest array of information ever in the history of mankind. And right now, if you were to go to the Google site there, 65 or 67% of us are on a porn site.
Yeah.
Or we're looking at some other crap. Unless we think a nuclear missile is going to hit us. Apparently, I don't know if you saw that in Hawaii. Everybody got religion real quick, and all those sites went to nothing.
Japan, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, and then, of course, it came flying back up once they realized the all clear. Everybody went back.
There was a line in the movie, in the Matrix movie, where Agent Smith told Neo that humans define their reality by misery and suffering, and he couldn't have been more correct.
Absolutely correct.
Until you go through the hells that could be just around the corner and that have been in the past, you just don't covet. You just don't covet the abilities and the freedoms that we have.
Here's what we'll close this break on. Robin Williams, God rest his soul, he had a line in one of his stand-ups. You go, you ever see some old folks? They got that look like that guy that was the last guy on the roof in Saigon at the end of Vietnam. Like, they're getting ready to step on and leave this. And that was going back a few years. And my point is, we have insulated ourselves so much that we do not realize the price and how quickly it can be taken away from us.
Well, that was just well said. I'll tell you one thing. I just watched Dunkirk, and then I watched Darkest Hour right behind it. If there's any kids listening to me right now.
That completely explains what's going on here. Do you have a cigar in your mouth?
I do. I absolutely do. I've got a Gurkha in my mouth right now.
I have the Arkansas version of Winston with us tonight.
Well, I don't know. I loved him. I was glad that they brought him in the game when they did. They didn't know what they were doing, but it turned out the best for England. It turned out the best for what I call the old country for us. They're our brothers and our sisters. And God only knows if America hadn't gotten involved when they did, what would have happened. I just don't. I fear to God that these kids today. Now, listen, I'm not talking about all of you. There are some wonderful, bright, great kids out there today still. But we see, because of social media, a lot more of the ones who don't get it. And it's scary. It's scary to people like myself, but I know many bright 15, 16, 18, 21, 25-year-olds that are they're holding it down, and they're way smarter than I ever could have been, and very talented, very well-rounded, all-American folks. But, and they even see what we're talking about. They see it. But without faith, without belief, and without love for all of our countrymen, because I don't hate liberals, Democrats, Republicans, right-wing. I don't hate anybody for the political beliefs they have, and that is a problem. So, folks, listen, just work on that. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to defriend them. You don't have to run them out of the neighborhood. Get to know your neighbors. Everybody start sitting down and having dinner together without a phone in your hands. Start talking. Start communicating. Let's love one another. Take care of one another, because the government is not going to do it for us.
Amen.
Let's go to break.
All right. You are the greatest audience on the planet. That didn't go anywhere near what we had planned for that break. I hope you enjoyed it.
It did not.
It did not. But KGRA has got great things in store, and Sunday nights become a powerhouse, and I am most humbled that I have anything to do with it, and I appreciate this man for giving me a chance to work on this station. So with that, Task Force Griffin, KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. Your connection remains secure. Stand by. Talk to you on the backside.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi, it's AJ from Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. Have you been searching for unique items to create or add to your sacred space? What about tools for your holistic healing? Or those one-of-a-kind magical ingredients to manifest your desires? Well, look no more, because Vibes has a variety of items to assist you in your spiritual journey. From crystals to candles, incense to books, tapestries to jewelry, OnlineVibes.com has what you're seeking. We even have some thoughtful and mindful gifts to share with your friends and family too. Visit us at OnlineVibes.com from the comfort of your home, or give us a call at 385-244-1099 to have your order beautifully packaged and sent directly to you or a loved one. And right now, take advantage of the coupon code KGRA at checkout to receive 15% off any order. Remember, online, VIBEZ.com.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Now streaming free on Amazon Prime from UFO TV. The knowledge of the forever time. The knowledge of the eight. This is the final episode in this epic journey, now considered the most controversial ancient alien film series in the world today. Discover the knowledge of the forever time. The knowledge of the eight. The final episode, now streaming on Amazon Prime from UFO TV. If God is with you, be sure to bring him. We will all need him.
Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back to Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio, KGRadio.com. It has been a very, very dynamic, active show tonight. And what better way, much like the appearance of the full moon for that instant once every month, every 27 and a half days, Marc DAntonio joins us.
Well, hey there,
to
Commander.
help bring us in for that last half hour. Now, Mark was explaining to me that cobras are venomous on the off air before we came in. I just want to assure everybody that my venom is so sweet that the antidote is insulin. Because if I bite, you'll be in diabetic shock.
Wow.
So that's why Race is so quiet right now, because I had to. He got a little bite, so he's taking his insulin right now.
Okay, did you just think of that?
No,
because that was funny.
I'm like this, man. I'm like this all the time.
So you got snow up there, huh?
Oh yeah. I was doing some plowing today too.
Really?
Not that rainy stuff like you guys get down there, in the warmer regions of New England. We're up here in the harsh part of it.
Yeah,
this is
I'm thinking
up here.
It's cold here, man. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm in Connecticut.
You didn't get any snow.
You're farther north than me. No, we didn't get any snow. We got all rain, but it was
You're
cold.
talking about snow. You're talking about snow like at the end of 18. You guys have already you're putting the beach chairs out and the picnic tables are coming out.
It was 71 the other day, and then it dropped to 40 the next day. I mean, if you don't like the weather,
yeah,
hey, you know what they say? If you don't like the weather in New England, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
Yeah. So how was your show? What happened today? You had Linda on. You had Linda Moulton Howe on for an hour.
That is probably one of the toughest interviews that I've done, because Linda is, she's an absolute pro, and there's a little bit of idolizing because I've followed her for years.
Yeah, me too.
She was in Dreamland and the stuff that she did with Art Bell, and she gave some behind the scenes stuff, and her absolute, what I was hoping that would drive home, and hopefully get her again to refine it. She is she's a strict journalist. She is the classic definition of the person that does the research, does the work, puts it together, uses logic, and presents you the information, and that's missing so badly these days. So
I totally agree.
It flew by. There was no time. And then Race and I had this make believe mamby-pamby thing. We were going to talk about the station and talk about what's coming next, and try to talk a little bit about the Congress. And him and I ended up in that in that crazy place, where the tinfoil is showing up from underneath my flight helmet. Race is one of those guys like yourself that deeply loves and cares about the people in this country. And like myself, like a lot of the folks that listen to this show, the greatest audience on the planet that attends KGRA, is in turmoil for the changes that we're going through, and a lot of it, I don't think. I think our government is just out of control, and it's at the point that it's just bubbling up, and it's becoming to the point of crisis at almost every level, that every place you look. Also, I'd like to let you know, some folks in the room are saying that Connecticut is not part of New England.
Ha ha! Wow. Well, I hope I don't have to care about that too much longer, because in a couple of years or so, I'm expecting to be full-time in Arizona. Okay? I'm going to abandon this state like the plague, okay? Because our local government is garbage, okay? And I'm going to get out of here as soon as I can. So,
are you going to take the submarine with you, or is that going to be a selling feature when you depart
that's
the
going
house?
to now, for those who don't know what he's talking about, the submarine is actually my office. Okay, I have an office that when you come in, you have to open the hatch to get in. It's actually, a hatch. We turn the wheel, like on a ship.
I will give you the absolute measure of why this is so impressive. Okay, you don't ask something like me, because somebody like me, obviously, I am such a geek, that this would impress me. Mrs. Cobra was looking over the shoulder the night that we did a video tour, and Mark took us through. And she spent many, many years at sea, so she knows her way around the naval vessel. And she was like, wow. And then she looked around my room that I do. I think some folks I've described it to, and I've sent some pictures, with all the pictures and books. And she gave me that look like, wow, are you even really a man when I see something like that? You have all these pictures. So
you're being nice.
Very impressed with the Bayview room, so to speak.
Well, let me tell you, when you walk into my office, all right, and you come in, you close the hatch behind you, which is closed now. I actually soundproofed the door and that wall leading out of here. And not because I didn't want anyone to hear the screams from inside, okay? Because, if they wanted to, they could scream loud enough to be heard. But because of the fact that I also need to have some isolated time in here, because I do some special work for the Navy, as we've talked about, which is the whole reason why I made this room up like this. And so my shop and this office are what we call a cleared space. But enough of that. But the thing is, I have for windows in my office, I don't have real windows, okay? That would violate a whole bunch of terms. But I do have actual portholes from a destroyer as my windows. And the guy that did over my office with me, okay, he was helping me out. His name is Rosie, great guy. He looked at these little round windows. He goes, "These are going to be your windows, huh?" I go, "Yes, they are." "Well, how are you going to get out of them in case of a fire?" And I said, "I'm not." Okay, and then I showed him the other side of the room, the other side of the office, where I wanted him to cut a big square hole and to put a standard window that I could then cover with a simulated battle shutter, for the window. And so I have a battle shutter that's now closed, and it's locked closed. It looks like it's locked, but it can open in a heartbeat. It's all simulated. So it looks like a true compartment. I even numbered the compartment like it was on the ship. This is a starboard side, or a port side compartment.
Oh, I was ready to leap on that.
The bullseyes are all accurate.
Yeah, I was going to say that didn't look like starboard when I looked at those when you took me through, but you corrected yourself.
Yeah, no, it was actually, you're right. I mean, it was a compartment that I just figured out logically where I wanted to be on the ship, and I figured out where I would have to be above the waterline at a porthole like I was at, and I figured out what that porthole bullseye. The bullseyes, by the way, folks, are what you call the designations for, some of the rooms. Okay. And they're also on the wall to show you where the next compartment is, and they have they're called bullseyes. It tells you, okay, I'm going here. The bullseye says, this is what that is, and it gives you the whole designation for the next room. And then so that bullseye was accurate for this room. And so I just, I thought it was cool, and I did some funky things.
It's very cool.
Yeah, but I said if I have to work here, it's got to look cool. Because who wants to sit in a standard office? I used to have an office with fuzzy. Like the standard cubicle. I actually had a real office cubicle down here that I had managed to acquire from an office that was giving away the stuff. They couldn't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And I took a cubicle.
Makes you wonder why, huh? No, a lot of.
And I found out why. I took one of these cubicles, set it up, all that. It was cool. But, after, I don't know, like 6 months, a year, I was like, this is what I quit my regular job to get away from. Sitting inside a cubicle. I don't want to be in a cubicle. I want to be in a creative environment, a place that's really cool, because I'm a creative person, I think. And so I came up with this concept of doing this office over, and making it into a true battleship compartment, So I went down to Washington, D.C., and got on board a destroyer down there and did a whole bunch of photos, did a whole series of photos, and I came back here and I just emulated them here in the office, one right after another, including cold storage. There's a hatch marked cold storage on the wall. Do you remember that? I don't know if you saw that in the tour.
I do.
Okay. And it says cold storage, and because everything's marked. Everything's marked. Everyone like a space on the wall that's covered with a plate. It might say uptake space on it or something. Well, if you were to open that up, you would see that there's just another wall behind there. It's not really an open space, but that's the simulation. This is like a movie set rather than anything. And there's even rust blisters on the walls that are simulated rust blisters. And when people come in, they knock on the wall.
I want all our listeners to understand that he does not have dangerous rust on the interior where he's working at this time.
That's correct. That is correct. I even have repairs where they used a different lot of paint, and so the gray is slightly different gloss, different texture. Just like in the real world.
I've been part of work parties that this doesn't look like the right color. Just paint it. Let's go.
It's just paint it, right? Now,
don't wash
for the
anything.
record,
just paint it.
That's right. Paint over the dirt. And just for the record, I've never been in the service. Okay, I was always a bad wannabe. I wanted to join the Air Force, but I had a medical, and they wouldn't let me in there. So I later ended up becoming, a computer programmer guy. After getting a degree in astronomy, because that's where you go when you get a degree in astronomy. Unless you want to go into teaching college classes and becoming a professor in college, well, you actually go into.
You would have been a tremendous professor. Science. You would have been an unbelievable professor. Your entertainment value and your passion for the stuff you get into is so high. You would have been a tremendous professor. But
I get
the talents have not been lost. That it's just gone to a larger student body, KGRA
right.
University. Hey,
that's right.
So you still listening? That could be something we could work on.
I think that's a great idea, Race. KGRA University. And it's Cobra's. It's Cobra's thing.
Certificates and degrees. Oh, God.
There we go.
There you go. I think that's great, Race. That's a good idea.
Cobra gets the trademark on the end of that one, Race, before somebody grabs that.
Right on.
I'm not changing names again.
Yeah.
All right, so your show has been in orbit. Let's be honest. I mean, you blasted off. You entered orbit. You've been up there in the heavens.
Well, that's what the show's about, right? The sky, and
right.
Astronomy.
But I mean, you obviously hit the chord. My God, it's just.
No, I hope so. I mean, I look at it. Each week, I just say, look, you got to earn them from the bottom up every week. And it's not a competition with anybody, but it's a matter of just getting the information out there. And if people are really hungry for factual data that backs up some of their beliefs, okay, then this is the show they want to hear. They want to hear the Sky Tour radio show, because we're going to show them things that use science to show that their belief systems actually have merit. And so when people say, "Oh, you're just a UFO nut," really? Well, let me tell you about the fact that we understand how to go interstellar. We might actually do it in another, say, 300 years with a full-blown ship, and maybe with nanoships in the next 10 or 20, actually. So, and that's right there takes us to a new level, because we've only been on this planet as a true thinking, reasoning. Yes, thank you. Exactly. As a reasoning species, we've only been here realistically about 40,000 years, okay, overall. Now, yes, Australopithecus africanus, Lucy, was around 4.2 million years ago, sure. However, that Lucy didn't look up and say, "I wonder what that thing is in the sky." The Lucy hominid didn't wonder about the sun and the stars, okay? It's when we started to think scientifically as a species, that amount of time is actually even less than 50,000 years. And now, in that small amount of time, Commander, we have been able to see that we can go interstellar if we can do this and this, okay? Create a warp bubble over here, or step out of our
and actually, with our puny mathematics, are able to now refine those calculations that it's becoming achievable. We haven't had a major technological breakthrough. I think we're close in some areas.
I agree. You're right. And see, here's the problem. Some of our science, our physics, doesn't agree with some of the other physics that's supposed to explain some of the same things. And that's a problem. Okay.
Well, no, it's not. And for everyone that's married, that's completely the understandable state.
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But, I got to tell you, when we look at things like quantum mechanics, I mean, it's hard to even say the word quantum mechanics. What is it? Well, the study at the atomic level, say. When we look at what goes on there, and then we look at the macro physics that is supposed to describe it as an overall level, at an overall level from above, they don't agree sometimes. Yet they're supposed to agree. So clearly we're missing a few things. And, even the Hubble Space Telescope has made some discoveries lately that it really shows that we actually have to come up with what we're calling a new physics. I love that. Okay, physics should never be static, because if it was, we would probably have a good feel for everything in the universe. But we don't. We only know about 4% of the universe. Isn't that crazy? 4%.
I'm going to try something on you.
Yeah.
Two things. We're going to talk about, before we go, I want your take on Tesla. I want you, so start formatting and fulminating your thoughts there. So
okay.
When I substitute school teach, I don't get to do it very much anymore, but when I did, and I really often I would end up in a math class because of my undergrad.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, well, what's this thing pi? Explain to me what it is. So I'd finally get them to the point of a non-repeating decimal.
Okay.
And everyone seems to understand that. And I said, okay, this is why this is important. And if an alien landed in the parking lot today, from outer space alien, we could communicate with them mathematically by showing them what we use for symbols to come up and to explain to them that we know what pi is.
That's right.
So they're all looking at me. They're kind of nodding. At least I have their interest.
Yeah.
Next part, I go, here's why that's important. Because if we had the ability to look, I said, tell me how, if I take a trash can, I'll put it at a desk. I said, how do we know what the circumference, a distance of this is?
Right. Circumference and diameter.
You have the formula. I said, okay, but let's say we don't have the formula. I take a piece of string and I stretch it around and I make a nice tight part. And then I go over to a ruler and I stretch it out in the ruler. I didn't have to have pi. What's going on? Well, that's how much it is. I said, but no, if we put it into the formula, we know that it's pretty close to, say, 32 inches, but it's not quite 32 inches. Why? So now that I really have them hooked, I said, okay, now let's go all the way down. And if we had the ability with a super electron microscope, what would we see at the end of this piece of string or tape or whatever we're using to measure? We would see atoms moving around. The world you live in, you never have a defined measurement.
Right, and nothing sits still. Nothing
is there. So nothing is 6 feet long. Nothing is any of that. We have just agreed upon that we're going to go this close, and everybody except the IRS is that we've agreed that this is where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And if you are able to fly a spacecraft and come here, you're going to have to understand that. That's going to be pretty universal through our entire universe.
That's right.
And the part that I love best is when I used to use this example with them, everybody in that room kind of already knew all that stuff by the time they got to high school. No matter how brainy or non-brainy they thought they were, they actually got that and they could grab that.
I call that living within the approximation. Okay, you're living within the approximation that science provides for us, or that the world provides. The measure of something is really not the true measure. That's true, and so we live within and operate within the approximation. Right, and
again,
that's what the
another really good lesson from marriage. I just throw that in.
Well,
and let's talk about Tesla, who was never married.
Elon Musk, you mean, or Nicole Tesla? I mean,
Nikola.
Okay.
The real genius.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, Tesla, of course, he died a poor man, of course, because he had issues with Thomas Edison as well, if I recall. And
J.P. Morgan, who did everything he possibly could to destroy him.
Yeah, which, doesn't that kind of remind you of some of the people today who are fighting against scientific awareness that are, trying to be put out? I mean, this is something that we can't seem to get over. It's like science is intimidating to people for some reason.
I'm going to jump on something you just said.
Yeah.
Because it's that good. In earlier days, it was the church, correct? That seemed to always be the one that was in conflict with science, correct?
Right, and you'd have to be careful how you spoke, and you have to add things to cover the church's needs.
Hold on to that for 1 second, because if race doesn't come flying in like one of those winged monkeys from the Wizard of Oz when I drop this one. So now we have government that has become our self-created religion, and you have to be careful what you say, right?
Yeah,
and the government is telling you what is true science and what is not true science. Correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Could be a breakthrough. I'm surprised. I thought we were going to get the winged monkey action there from Race. I thought he was going to fly in on that one.
He's probably on mute and looking at something. So he's probably reading something. So he's not even paying attention.
I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention, but
there.
I'm trying to, I'm trying to be a good boy.
He's the man behind the curtain.
You can hear his smile. He's doing fine. He's doing fine.
All right. Well, we're coming in our closing minutes here. What's the projection for the show for the rest of this year? What big events do you think you have ahead?
For me, I think for SkyTour Radio, the big news will probably be this year that we probably found a second Earth around a distant star, and it still has to be shown to be a habitable system, that is a place with atmosphere that can handle us. And it's already in the habitable zone, that is the zone that's not too hot, not too cold, the Goldilocks zone as we call it. But I think the big news is going to be that we're going to end up with a second Earth that we're going to be focusing on with the James Webb Space Telescope that's going to go up now next year. I mean, there's delay after delay.
Yes, unfortunately.
But but I think the big news is going to be that. And the other big news is that using artificial intelligence, we're going to be able to find some multiple of the planets we found now, which is about 3,600. We're going to find many, many more, again, some multiple of that number, based on the fact that artificial intelligence systems can dig deeper into the data than human beings can. And they're going to crunch in the background. And places like planethunters.org provide this at some level where you can actually go and use and look at data that's never been seen before and find exoplanets yourself by digging through the data, and they even teach you online how to find the planets. So these are new ventures, and so getting people involved to do all this is great. Getting computers involved to do this is fantastic. And the big news this year is going to be that we're probably going to find a second home when we need it. That's my guess.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And tonight we're going to actually talk
on a
about
slightly
one of those.
smaller scale. What do you have planned for your show this year?
Well, for the show this year, my whole goal, the goal actually for me and Amanda Curran, who's my co-host, we are going to make SkyTour Radio the companion to the SkyTour live stream, where we do the live. I mean, it is sort of now, but we're not streaming now, at least for another couple of weeks.
Right.
And
that
we'll be
such
back.
Fun. It's just it's just so much fun.
You joined us. Yes. That one. It was wonderful.
Yeah, when you were, clawing your way, now that you've established yourself in the top, I guess I'll have to probably beg to come back on.
No, we beg you, okay? We know, we know where we come from, like me. Okay, I've stood on the shoulders of people far, far in advance of me, okay, to be able to make my meager forward motion. And I've never forgotten where I came from. You haven't either. You know how it is. You're as humble pie as anyone wants to say.
And very sweet venom.
And, well, I haven't been bitten yet, and I'm glad, because I don't want to get you mad enough to ever bite me, because I don't want to play with cobras. Okay, but I'll keep you on my good side as best I can. You're a good guy, let me tell you.
Well, thank you for that. That was very nice. Yeah. I look forward to the show in the summer. when I'm sitting out with Mrs. Cobra with the computer. It's in the night sky, and I'm going to be looking with the eye and looking at the screen, and maybe even have an adult beverage to help have that all work out.
That'll be helpful. I mean, between now and the summer, I've got a whole bunch of conferences all over the country, and actually I got to go to Norway in August to speak. So it's going to be a busy year, busy year. But it's good. I love
on your stateside appearances, what do you got lined up for this year?
Let's see. In a few weeks, I'll be in Boise, Idaho, doing a presentation with Alejandro Rojas from Open Minds and Ben Hansen. And then in April, I'm in Ozarks with, the man himself behind you that you're referring to, Race. And then I'm doing that conference. And then in May, I'm doing the Pine Bush Conference in New York State. June, I didn't have anything, but now I do. I have to go to Florida for several days to actually do one of their meetings down there. Cool. July, I don't think I have anything. No, July is the MUFON Symposium, and I've now been booked for that for July. And then August is Norway. September is actually free right now. But October, I'm in Arizona at the end of October and also in November. So I'm just going to stay right through for a whole bunch of days into November and teach a boot camp in November for folks out in Arizona on UFOs and astronomy and stuff. It's going to be really great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long, very busy year, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'm getting the word out, and that's what matters, right?
Absolutely. Well,
it could be any of us.
You grab the yellow and black handles there and eject, sir, and get yourself ready for your show, folks. This has been Task Force Griffin on KGR Radio, KGRradio.com, talking to the greatest audience on the planet. And my last part of my guest is Marc DAntonio, had Race Hobbs, and of course our favorite and our lady of quite great esteem,
Linda Moulton Howe.
Linda was with us earlier tonight, and I'm sorry that I just could not get more out of her. She was just barely keeping up. All kidding aside, she was in great form, as she always is. And tip of the hat to all of you. Thank you very much. Keep the emails coming. Task Force Griffin, KGRradio.com. Okay, Race, you can break her down and get her ready for Mark's show.